It's 12 noon Eastern time on a Friday. And what does that mean? It's time for another episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network, sponsored every week and presented by CVC Success Group. And hopefully, we're going to share some ideas, some concepts with you today as normal that you can put to work to help you take your business to the one that you dream of. So, the title of today's episode is how do you locate the weaknesses in your business? Because it's a plain true fact. Every single business out there has weaknesses. And what we see is we just get used to the weaknesses. If you were to take a picture of your business, just like if you take a picture of anything, you're going to see things in that background that you don't notice because you're just used to them happening. So today we're going to talk about some processes that we suggest that you consider that can help you locate the weaknesses and come up with action plans and a strategic plan of how to knock these weaknesses off to the side. So, Cheryl, let's start with you. As I talk about weaknesses in business and how to locate and find these weaknesses, what comes to your mind?
Well, one thing you have to stop and look because the weaknesses you hate to see. So people tend not to look for them. And a lot of times they're simple weaknesses that they are your people and they're what's going on in the times. But when we do our SWOT meetings, that's one of the things we delve on. We always look for their strengths, but the main thing we look for is their weaknesses because their strengths are great, but their weaknesses is what causes them not to grow.
Very, very true. And we'll talk about SWOT meetings more in depth. And I want to go to Josh. Josh, what comes up in your mind when we talk about weaknesses in business? I mean, you're working as a consultant, you're working helping people getting their service titans up.
Yeah.
So, what do you see as ways to find these weaknesses? Because I'm sure you're starting to see them as you roll through this.
Yeah. So one thing I like to do is triage when things go bad. So especially installs, like if we've lost money, things like that. So I want to know, was there a problem with the bidding process? Was there something we didn't see? Was there an SOP that wasn't followed? Those are the things that I really like to dig down into.
Okay, so let's switch over. Cheryl, you brought up one of our favorite things to talk about, which is SWOT meetings. And a SWOT is spelled SWOT. And what this stands for is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's a SWOT meeting. And this is a day-long affair that is best conducted and facilitated by someone who's not in the company every single day. You need to understand how to facilitate a SWOT and how to get the right information out of the SWOT. And there's two different types of SWOT meetings that we conduct. One is where we have the entire company meet. We have the entire company. And what we're doing is we are getting the input from every person in the company, and we're putting this down on a big white sheet of paper that sticks to the wall. It comes as a flip chart, and then we stick these to the wall. And the first thing is we go through what are the strengths of the company? What does this company have that sets them aside from other companies? Then we go into the weaknesses of the company, and we get what everybody sees as the weaknesses in the company. The O stands for opportunities that exist out there, and the T stands for threats. And what you have to understand is strengths and weaknesses are both interior issues. Opportunities and threats are exterior issues. And you're exactly right. Chuck just added something here. I'm going to put it up. Weaknesses equals waste, kills culture, and drives down profit. That's exactly right, Chuck. And that's what we're trying to locate here, going through the SWOT process. And let's say I've actually got one scheduled this week. I do these through the spring, summer, actually year round with companies. I've done quite a few of these in my career now, and it really results in what we come up with at the end is action plans. And the action plans are what we're going to do and who's going to take ownership of these various action plans and drive them through. And we try to set a strategic plan to do this. So Cheryl, what would you add in about what would you add in about SWAT meetings? And Levi Bogads, I have been a part of several. That's great, Levi. So you're seeing the advantage of these. That's fantastic, brother. So Cheryl, what do you see here? What would you add about a SWAT meeting?
Well, this is a time when it gives the employee a chance to say what they need to say without repercussion. Actually, they're the people that are there every day. They're the ones that see it. And if they can bring this particular weakness up, it actually resonates more with their peers than if the owner brings it up. If the owner says they have a lot of waste or they're not communicating, that doesn't mean a whole lot at times, but let your peers start saying that. And I think that's where the group SWATs are marvelous.
Yeah, and they are. And like I said, I've had business owners and managers tell me at the end of a SWAT meeting, they had no idea that this weaknesses in the company existed. So Josh, SWAT meetings, what's your thought process? Because when you were the manager at Tri-County, we actually did SWAT meetings for you. What's your thought on this?
As a manager, you can be very hard to listen, to hear, because sometimes it feels like it can be, you don't want it to be a bitch session, but sometimes it can be a bitch session. So that was always part of it. I think we did 3 or 4 with you over the time. I think I sat out once just so, I thought they would talk a little bit more freely. But it's usually truthful. I usually I think each time we went through it, the major weakness was communication. That was a big one, just inter-team communication.
Okay, I understand. And so, like I said, but these have to be set up properly. So one of the things is we have to move off site. In other words, unless you have a dedicated training space that is separate in the building, we usually set up and do a SWAT meeting at a remote location. We've done these so I've done them in churches, believe it or not, in church education fellowship halls. I've done them in restaurants. I've done them at hotel meetings facilities. I've done it at clubhouses. I recently did one that was a conservation club sitting on a lake setting. So, but what we need is a place that phones aren't ringing, people aren't taking care of phones. This day is dedicated to digging down and coming up with those action plans and then coming up with a process. And like I say, it's amazing as you listen to this, because one of the things is managers and owners are going to learn a whole lot in these. These are very open meetings. We tell people that you don't have to hold back anything. You know the answers. Also, by developing the strengths down on paper, we can share that with the marketing company that markets that company, as in these are the things that make us special. We go further. We go into what the opportunities are. Is there an expansion of product lines of services that could help them? We also go through the threats. And as we go through the threats are external. And we talk about threats such as what happens if another pandemic hits? What happens if OSHA should show up in the company? And what happens if this happens or that happens? We go over regulatory policies, government regulations that can affect the business. We go through the economy, various things that can realistically cripple a business, inflation, recessions, all these things. Tom has a question here. Tom, you're asking what's the average price of the cost of this project? If you are interested in that, I need you to email me. I'll be glad to share that with you, because it's going to depend greatly on who that facilitator is that works with you to do this. So if this is something that interests you, hey, my email address is up on the screen. Send it. So Cheryl, what else would you add about a SWAT meeting to this discussion?
Well, the main thing I've noticed over the years, and I don't attend a lot of them anymore. At one time, I physically attended with you. Then we Zoomed in. They change up. You work it towards the market. But I think it brings the company together. Everyone says that after the SWAT meeting, there's more camaraderie, there's more people that they're comfortable speaking again. The problem is, like with everything else, a lot of times things resort back. So that's why we usually suggest one and sometimes two, depending on how your company functions, and just to set it up. But every time after you do one, you go back over the past years and you see if you improved in that area. And I think it gives that ongoing. Plus, when you pick up new employees, they need to know what happened and where you came from.
Yeah. And I think it's an amazing thing. Like I said, a lot of companies, in fact, in our coaching practice, we suggest this be done once a year. And we provide that as part of the service to our clients. But actually, we see the employees start asking, when are we going to have another SWAT? When are we all going to sit down? So it's a good process. Josh, I'm gonna direct a question to you. Do you remember when we did it and your mother attended, who was actually the owner of Tri County? Do you remember your mother's reaction after the SWAT was over with?
Uh, Knowing her, she was probably pretty rattled.
She was very rattled. She was startled. It was really alarming to her because your mom was more of an absentee owner. She wasn't there every day. And when she heard the concerns of what the people in the company saw as the weaknesses, yes, it did rattle her a little bit. So it was a very eye opening experience for her to undergo in that setting. Like I said, the first one we did for you, yeah, it wasn't a real good one. We did it right there in your office meeting area, and
Oh
nobody
yeah,
from management participated. And I told you next time we do one, we got to get out of here. We got to have a hotel meeting room or something, and we need the owners to be here to sit through this and participate in this. And I think it did a lot to build the culture up there. I really do.
it did.
Yeah. So anyway, that and like I said, I want to describe this earlier. I told you there's two types of SWATs. When a company gets larger, and what I'm talking about, we got more than 10 employees in that company. Usually we start backing that down from a full SWAT with the entire company, and we start doing a SWAT with the leadership team. And I've done several of those this year where we simply met with the leadership team. These can be extremely productive also, where we get everybody on the leadership team bought into where it goes. Recently, Cheryl, we did one right here in our office. If you remember, it was probably about 6 weeks ago. But that company, their management team traveled to Concord and we did it on site. Yeah, you've never participated in one of the leadership SWATs, I don't believe, have you?
No.
Okay. So, anyway, again, we're looking at the weaknesses, but we're not just going to talk about the weaknesses. It's vastly important that we come up with action plans. When Brandy was working with me, whenever we had joint clients where she and I both work with the clients, then we actually had Brandy would also attend the SWAT meetings with me as a co-facilitator to help put it together. And sometimes people have remote employees. They'll actually fly the employees in remotely. I did one about 2 months ago that the CSR worked in another state, and she came in and joined us at the SWAT meeting. In fact, that was Lee Rolfe that we just interviewed a couple weeks ago on using remote employees, okay, remote CSRs. So, Cheryl, anything else to add on the SWAT? Because we've got one more area to look at here.
The only thing I would add is that every business needs to think about this because I think it'll take them to the next level.
Yeah. Josh, anything else you'd add?
No, just as the manager, soak it in. They're speaking up because they care, and don't kill that. Let them speak up, because if they don't speak up, then they don't care. Then their morale's crushed.
That's it. And like I said, it is a tremendous culture and morale building episode. It also educates the members of the team of what the issues are. Now, there's also a need for the following, which is the SWAT follow up, where you take a look at these action plans 90 days, 180 days, three, going on from there. and you look at what is the progress you have made in the action plan since they were set up. So having the follow-up is also something that you want to go through with this. In fact, I've published 10 books at this time, and my next book is going to be on the process of how do you conduct a SWOT. I recently did an article for Firetime Magazine on SWOTs and how they're done, how they're rolled out. But if you're interested in doing a SWOT, my email address is on the screen. Maybe I'm not the right person to facilitate this for you, but I can give you the background, and hey, we can find somebody that may suit your purposes better in case I'm not the right guy for you. The key thing is get it done to put this forward. So this is one way to find the weaknesses. Another way to find the weaknesses, so many people know where they want to go. They just don't have a strategic plan to make it happen. And this is where you may want to consider what we call an on-site analysis, where I visit the company, I spend 2 days there, and I'll look at what do I see as the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And from that, I put together a strategic plan of how the company needs to move to get to their objectives as they've shared with me. Now, Josh, you have participated with me on one on-site analysis at this point.
Yep.
What's your thought process on the on-site analysis? Because you've done it from two sides. One, you did it as my client when I came into Tri-County for those 2 days, but you also now participated in doing the analysis and writing the strategic plan up. What's your thoughts on the on-site analysis?
It's definitely good to get a second set of eyes on your business, especially from if you get, especially someone like me who comes in where I'm a very technical person and very process oriented. And if you don't have that, makes it easy, like, okay, why I'm very successful at doing triages and making sure they don't happen again. You get that second set of eyes on it and you can go, hey, this isn't normal. You don't have to operate this way. And just telling people like, hey, this is solvable. You get that breath of fresh air. Like, no, you can fix this.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Josh. What was your thought after you observed interviews with the people in the company? Whenever I interviewed each of those workers in a private area and you sat in a room, what was your thought processes on that?
It was very interesting because we thought we had what I want to call it, a sacred cow. Is that
That would be a good word.
A sacred cow. And it turns out that was not the case. We were blown away by the responses, how they thought about the lead, the mentor there.
Yeah. And one of the things that we ask in the interview process is, if you own the company, what changes would you make in the company tomorrow morning if you could? And it was amazing asking that question. Josh, you remember when I asked each of those that question?
I remember asking it, but I'm trying to think what they said. I can't remember what they said off the top of my head. I don't think they said there was great, they said they loved the ownership and they loved working there, if I remember that correctly.
They did. Right? Usually people don't have an answer for that question. And we find out, do they have confidence in their management? It's really amazing as we go through that to see the background of these people and ask them some questions. I mean, one of the rules is, this is a completely open and honest conversation, and the client is never going to hear the results of what these individual people see and think. But at the same time, it tells us a lot about the culture of people in that company. So Cheryl, is anything you would add in about the analysis process? Because you've watched me travel to these for over 10 years now, and you've watched me sit here, and it's my goal to produce a strategic plan within 2 weeks after I have visited. And so you're aware, that report can run anywhere from 80 to 120 pages when it gets done. So Cheryl has watched me put these together, and I'll go upstairs and say, "Hey, I just finished the first draft of this one, or what?" So, what's your thought on this?
It's really in depth. I mean, it's amazed that some people get it, they grab it, they read it. The next people you talk to them in 6 months, and they've only got through the first quarter. So, but the ones that use it have always progressed. I mean, always.
It really is. Like I said, I've done these for people all over the industry. Some are very well known business owners where we've come in and we've done this. And to be honest with you, I think this analysis visit is one of the things that can really spring people into action and see things happen. It was really impressive. There was a speaker at the NCSG convention a couple of years ago that stood up there and said, "Hey, Jerry came into my business. He wrote an 82-page report, and I'm really proud because I did everything he told me to do to get it there." I got a comment on what I'm going to bring up here from Chuck Roydhouse. This is so important. Refrain from treating this like a convention where you get great info but fail to implement it. Plan but must have accountability or you will not move forward. That's exactly right, Chuck. That's why I talk about you got to follow up. And Chuck's aware of this. It's also because Chuck had an analysis done of his business some years ago where I come in, and Chuck was a person that also took the things that I said and put them into practice. He implemented, and that's key. So, Josh, any additional thoughts on either the SWOT or the on-site analysis visit?
I think it's just helpful to get that second set of eyes on there, so you can get someone to review your processes. Like when we hired Brandy also as a coach, I always say Brandy's the opposite side of the coin for me, and she was the first person to come in and look at my processes and actually help me fine tune them.
Yeah.
And that was a major help to me, just having that complete opposite set of eyes.
Yep, and you're right. Opposite ends of the spectrum. Yep, I'll agree with that most definitely. You and Brandy Biswell definitely come from opposite ends of the spectrum. There's no doubts about that, isn't there, Cheryl?
Black and white.
That's it. So anyway, Cheryl, what about you? Any additional things you would add to this?
The only thing I would add is if you want this done, it's a great thing to happen. But if you're gonna do it and then just throw it over on the counter, save your time, because it's no good just because it's in writing. It's only good if you implement it.
That's exactly right. So anyway, and I've seen some people that have liked this today that actually I've worked with and done this for. So I appreciate you guys being on here today. So anyway, if we can help you with this, like I said, you can't move your business forward to where you want to go when you got weaknesses that are roadblocks up in your way. And if you want to find a way to build these action plans, to build this strategic plan to become the business that you dream of, you got to do just like Chuck said, you got to take action. And after you take action, you got to implement, okay? Because what we find out there often, I'll tell you some of the things we find. We find tremendous amounts of waste in business. We find a lack of SOPs in most businesses. We find a lack of direction. We work from the aspect of the training. Are we training our people properly? So we'll come up with these various things that we need to move forward on in the business. And if you implement, you can make it happen and go where you want to. So, Josh, I'm going to ask one more time. Anything else you want to add to this?
No, that's about it.
Fantastic. Cheryl, you got anything you want to add to this?
I think this was good. I just want to tell everybody, feel free to contact either one of us if you have questions, and let us help you move to the next level.
That's what it's all about. So we want to thank you for being with us today. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure for you to be here. We have some people on the live, but like I said, we get much more viewership on our recorded broadcast. So this will be hanging up on our social media pages. It'll be hanging up on our YouTube channel. It's on our LinkedIn channel. So, hey, let us know if you have any questions about either the SWOT meeting or an analysis visit, reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We can have a conversation and see if we can put together a plan that's going to work for you to move your business to where you want to go. And with that, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. Have a great weekend and a great